G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it.
Welcome everyone. Today I'm interviewing Simon Robustelli, who is based in Hobart in Australia, and Simon's mate of mine. Will go back many years, and he used to be in the restaurant game, sold his business about 4.5 years ago, just before COVID we're talking about. Now operates another business, totally different industry. So look forward to the chat, mate. So thanks for your time.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it, mate. I'm on the cuffs of being a has-been, mate, but I'm trying to reinvigorate myself.
Never, mate, never. You're one of the few guests who've sold a business, so it'll be good to talk about your experience and what you learned, and also, I guess, how you translated that into a different business, which is totally different industry. So, and some of the learnings from that, and your wife's also got a pharmacy, so very much involved with business and have been for many years. So just to kick off, mate, tell the audience a bit about yourself and the business Solo Pasta as it was, which will sort of provide the context for our conversation.
Yeah, look, well, first of all, thanks for having me on, Mike, as well. I appreciate it, mate. I feel pretty humbled by it, mate. You've had a few rock stars on here, so if I can be, align myself with those kind of guys, mate, I feel very blessed to be on here, mate. So thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Look, where did my journey start? My journey started sort of humble beginnings. The old boy had a food wholesaling business, which we sort of service a lot of the sort of restaurants, and had a little retail shop out the front, which served a bit of the community, in particular the European community, being obviously a European or Italian influence wholesaler. So my love for food sort of started pretty early, and I started off, I didn't really want to finish off grade 11 and 12, but sort of mum and dad forced me, and, give thanks to them. That sort of got introduced to the female race, because being a St. Virgil's boy, mate, you sort of, that gave me a little bit of, where am I? What have I been missing out on all these years at an all boys school? But great experience, met some amazing created some amazing relationships there. But I was forced, and I did that, and it was great. But I started, getting into, getting around with Dad. We're doing deliveries to the restaurants, and got all excited and thought about, this could be something special. So I actually started my first job at the Riviera restaurant, which is no longer there. It was in Hunter Street, next door to Drunken Admiral, which has been there as well for as long as I can remember too. So started there under the reins of the great Filippo Di Cesare and Giuseppe Mampieri. They were great sort of mentors to sort of enter the industry. I was only a young 15-year-old, and they ended up, I think I was there for 2 years, and they ended up selling. So they ended up going their different ways. They wanted sort of a little bit more family life, because it does get a little bit taxing. Ended up going to work for the great Angelo Ferraccio in Battery Point. So he'll claim that that's where I did my apprenticeship, but I started a little bit earlier. But I definitely was very fortunate to work alongside both those guys that I previously mentioned, but also Angelo. Angelo's quite the restaurateur. He's probably one of the he's the best going around in my eyes, as far as that ability to connect, people and food, and bring them all together, and create an experience. And I think that's what the food game's all about. It's about creating that experience. So
yeah, he's certainly good at it. We had Ange on our podcast a few months ago. So
yeah, beautiful. Oh, there you go, lovely. Well, again, I'm always second to him anyway. No, I spent 6 years with Ange, Mike, and we toyed around with the idea of that, maybe getting involved or doing something together, but it seemed, it just sort of, Angelo was pretty established where he was and with his partnerships that he was involved in. So I saw an opening that through my father's business, actually. I was doing some deliveries, and the great Sav Miale from Solo Pasta, he sort of toyed with the idea that had enough of it, and he wanted to get out, and I approached my good mate, and the conversation was real quick and very sort of casual. Mike, I approached a good mate, Alfonso Giusti, who was my one of my best mates at the time, and he was a chef, and I mentioned to him, mate, this opportunity's come up, and mate, we just went in all guns blazing. He said yes. I don't think it took too many for him, or too much time for him to agree to go and do it, and mate, we did that, and we never looked back, mate. That was the start of something quite special in both our lives.
So what year did you take over Solo Pasta?
So we're looking at now. I was 21 when I took over, so
Right.
just on the cusp of being 22. So I was so it's 2005. It was 2004, 2005. Far out. I've got to get back in the memory bank now.
So you had it for about 15 years, and
Yeah.
like you're saying, you were fortunate that you sold just as COVID lockdown hit. So that was obviously March 2020. So 15 years. So can you share some sort of key numbers that show the growth, if you can sort of remember back from, when you first took over to when you finished, as far as, how much did you grow revenue or profit in percentages, or any figures you're happy to share?
Yeah, look, absolutely. I'm pretty open with all those kind of things, Mike. I think, well, I remember Sav when he sat down, Alfonso and I, he sort of said to me, I mean, look, he was towards the end, he was only there a couple of nights. He had his regular nights, and the nights that he was there, the place was heaving and pumping, and I think he was saying a quiet week was 5K a week, and and then a busy week he could do anywhere between 7 and 8K. We took that on when we did a little facelift, and a very, very minor one. Obviously, 21. We didn't have a lot of fun. So again, big thanks to my father. I'm not sure Alfonso's position, but he's allowed me to borrow the titles a couple of times throughout the years in my early stages. So I wouldn't have been able to get involved if it wasn't thanks to my father for helping that initial out. But hopefully I paid him back, and he still reckons I'm on back pay. But anyway, we still argue over that with a laugh. So look, I mean, so we were doing anywhere between 5 and 7K. And I think within a matter of a month, we were doing 5K, close to 5K on a Friday night, Saturday night. So we knew that the business itself had a huge it was one of those sort of things that everyone had some form of connection to Solo, whether it was through uni days. Sab created some amazing relationships through it, but he was really transparent. He got tired towards the end, and it's an industry, once you get sort of tired, it can be more challenging and taxing on you as well. So, again, the nights that he was there, the place was heaving and pumping, and we saw that, and we got to meet all the regulars. We spent about a month with him prior to the transition, and then we also had a little following. I think the back end of people knowing that I'd spent 6 years with Angelo and Marco, and and even Tyrone back then. Maybe that probably had a lot to do with it as well, and Alfonso as well. Alfonso spent some time down at Maldini, and he was at the Boathouse, Splash of Paris too. So he'd worked at some pretty regarded restaurants in their classes back in the years. So it's sort of just we're really fortunate, Mike. It just took off and went from strength to strength. That was so.
What was your sort of revenue roughly a week, say, when you sold it? So you sort of started, 5 to 7 a week, and
so yeah, we jumped up pretty quick to about 15, 20K within months, realistically. And then we got to so I ended up selling out my old business partner, Dimitri Giovanniglou. Alfonso sort of left after after 4 or 5 years. He went to go travel, and then my business partner Dimitri, who was the head chef, he came in, and him and I had it for another eight years together, and I bought him out. He developed a pattern as well now, Mike. Everyone thinks, going through business partners. It was all amicable. Alfonso wanted to go travel and didn't want to, a little bit more family life as well. Same reason I got out too as well. So we got to towards the end, we were doing anywhere between sort of 42 to 50K a week towards the end. And that went through. We went through a renovation as well. We ended up getting the lease on next door. So we did expand. We felt that, we're pretty pressed with what we were. We could only push out as much as we could push out. But, going into that sort of next space really opened us up for doing a lot more bigger numbers. Not necessarily always bigger profit, because your running costs, we all got pretty excited. Maybe we were a little bit naive when we did do the big reno. We thought, geez, everything's doubling here. This means, double income days. So, and it didn't always turn out like that, but there was some definitely, it was definitely some great experience, and it was rewarding to us looking back now, like, you become complacent, I think, as well, Mike, with, the income that you're bringing in. And, I think getting out of the restaurant now as well, that sort of, you sort of miss those certain components of the income that comes in, and, the little luxuries that you get out of it, stuff like that there. But
I think that's amazing growth. I mean, essentially 10 times revenue you grew over that period. And as you say, I guess with growth comes its challenges, and having the foundations and in place are important. As no doubt you had in place, and that's a big part of our business transformation program that we work with small business owners around. So when was the moment you felt like you had succeeded?
Look, I suppose when, it's tough. I suppose when you started getting, all your predecessors in the industry saying, mate, we're proud of you, you're doing a good job. And I suppose seeing the place being busy obviously doesn't always convert to, being profitable. But I think that, we were really lucky early on in the piece. It just went really well. I think we had good people around us, Mike. We had, my father, Alfonso, his father, their parent, both our parents, sorry, I should say, respecting mothers as well. People like Angelo as well, I used to go to in particular for advice, and, my father as well in particular. We just had good people around us always. And, and I was always open to take advice. It's probably one of my biggest strengths, that my ability to always be open to, to listen. Whether I agreed with someone or not, that's probably a different story. But whether I chose to, take it on board, or to say, well, that was I don't know how much truth in that is, but that was my ability to forever learn, and we always had that sort of strength of where we needed to get to, and I think we stayed pretty true to that throughout the years. So it's hard. It's hard. It's a hard one to answer. It is, Mike, for me.
Was it sort of when you sold? Was that sort of a moment you felt like succeeded, or?
Look, I definitely, I think, and then I think, there's probably a little bit of I think the legacy that, you leave behind as well, where, you become, that people compare, they'll compare their experience to the experience that I created, this is my personal take on it. And I think that definitely is. And I feel, I sort of probably tried to remain humble about, what I didn't really do anything that special. I just cared for people, I think. And I was genuine in wanting to make sure that, you get every person that comes through that door, to give them a good experience. And I think that it paid off. It definitely did. It paid off dividends. And I think that's probably, look, I definitely walked away thinking, I left a small mark on the industry. And if that depicts whether you're successful or not, I think, fair to say that I probably was, or
Yeah,
we probably were.
yeah. No, and I guess what does success look like to you? And I guess since you sort of sold out, has that sort of, I guess, success and what it looks like changed since you sold solo pasta?
Yeah, well, that's another really good question because I think, successful, I think successful is being healthy. I think that's your first and foremost, having your health. That
Mm.
creates all the success, I think, as you sort of mature, you sort of value these kind of these things at the moment, and how much of a priority they are first and foremost for you to obviously to engage in other endeavors and stuff like that there. So, has it changed? Look, yeah, probably different types of success now. We've diversified as well. We've been fortunate enough to invest in property as well. So, that's been different. That's challenging as well, navigating trends in markets and stuff like that there. So, success for me has definitely changed in what I define as success. Yeah, definitely, Mike. Um,
And tends to, I think we're talking before, when children come along, that certainly puts a different perspective on it. And your kid's now 4 and 8, so I
oh my
guess
goodness.
that tends to change things. Is that fair to say?
Oh my goodness. Yeah,
Mm,
with that conversation we had before, young,
mm,
even your boys, young Max and Jocks, well, they're big boys now. They're young men, and they're contributing to the economy as well. And again, saying what I said to you before, being in a position now where you can go to pick the little man up from school, or go watch their soccer match on a Friday night. Like, these are all, that to me, that restaurant's created, and along with the pharmacy as well, and that's created that successful path for us to be able to do that now. And that there to me is also, components of success, being able to allow yourself to be in that position to do those kind of things.
that's right. Yeah, and I think if you're still running a business, I mean, and you're running a couple with your wife as well, but it's all about, and you said earlier about having the right people around you to allow that to be able to delegate, so you're not stuck in the business. So
Very much
yeah,
so.
yeah, that's good. So I guess from your experience at Solo Pasta, what is there one thing you could recommend to marketing a fast-growing business?
Yeah, look, I'd probably do it differently, Mike. I probably wouldn't. I probably would have allowed myself to work a little bit more on the business.
Mm,
And I think that's the biggest challenge for any, or from how I see it, from any sort of self-employed, is to how can I still drive the same form of income, but not have to be there, or get the same kind of returns, but not physically have to work, 6, 7 days. And I
mm,
think if I learned that key element, I probably would have still had the restaurant. Um, and again, now, I've been helping out a few of my mates up in North Hobart, the boys I'll do a little quick shout out, the boys at Capital, Pancho Villo, Maldini, Burger House, Ciao Ragazzi, all those. I've been really sort of fortunate, actually. I sort of, in a real time of, I was sort of toying with the idea about getting back in the game, food game, and they were sort of struggling with a bit of staff. So it was sort of a little mutual benefit. So I think working closely, and even with the relationships that you get closer with those guys, they're sort of looking at their models of how they sort of structured their businesses, and the challenges in all businesses, but learning how what they did was, working on the business as opposed to in it, was sort of, that was a big lesson for me that I learned. And I wish, no regrets. I wish I sort of adopted some of those into when I had the restaurant. It probably would have given, a little bit more longevity out of it.
mm.
Uh, Probably would have got the okay from my wife too as well to keep going.
But it's a good point, and I think it's a good takeaway for our listeners that have small businesses. I guess that longevity piece and having the structure and people around you, I guess, helps alleviate the potential of burnout. And
Yep.
uh, and like you said earlier, looking after your health has got to be first and foremost, because without that, everything can fall apart, right?
Absolutely, 100%. Absolutely. Yeah.
So funding your business, you mentioned earlier, you got a bit of support from your parents, and I like the way you put it, lending their titles.
Yeah.
Haven't heard that one before. So was there any other sort of funding throughout that journey?
Look, there was with the renovation as well. We diversified as well. We opened up another restaurant too as well. The restaurants, bank size restaurants aren't too welcoming to the bank's lending
Mm,
for or against. They really don't hold. It's an unfortunate thing. Like they sort of don't, because it's such a volatile industry. They just don't like lending against. So
mm,
we, again, going back to being in a very, very blessed position, having my parents there, when we diversified as well, I think I might have had to borrow one of his titles too as well earlier on in the piece. But that was challenging as well, Mike. So, I mean, you don't want to let too many restaurant secrets go as well. But, there was how much tax did you want to pay as well? And, it became extremely, tax was a big thing. Our taxes got us a lot as well. And we were young as well. So we sort of, you know, tax bill, well, far out. We didn't, sometimes we got caught out, in particular with the GST component as well. Like, shit, we got to give them, 10% straight away. Like,
mm,
because it was a lot of the restaurant industry, there wasn't much, apart from your alcohol, we really couldn't withdraw, recuperate some of the GST. So we got caught out a couple of times in the very early stages. But again, we were fortunate enough that we had a good business and, we were able to recuperate. But yeah, look, it was definitely challenging getting money to want to grow.
mm.
And that was the only time we sort of really needed money, is we wanted to expand into other venues,
Yep.
and stuff like that there.
So if you were a startup today with plenty of funding, would you go into the industry again?
That's extremely difficult. I've got to, do I think with my heart or do I think with my head? My heart says yes. And you ask my wife, and deep down, I'd say he'd be there within a heartbeat. But then I look back at the challenge of today's, the way things have changed. And I really think to myself, wow, do I really want to go through the stresses? And I see it, and still being sort of half foot in to the industry, I see how the transition and how the industry's evolved over the years. It's becoming harder and harder, to make money, for starters. The skilled staff is becoming more and more challenging. There's less people wanting to, enter the industry, and that's purely from a lifestyle. In particular with chefs, that's been probably really challenging. There's some amazing chefs around, but there's just not that many wanting to join the industry. You think about, the lifestyle of how they, what it looks like. You see all these great cooking shows and stuff like that. The reality of it is, mate, they're in four walls, stainless steel. It's
Mm,
45 degrees in there, and there's not much glamour to it. So, and that comes down to the pay. Like, I think from out of the skilled trades, where chefing's probably one of the lowest paid skills, comparing it to, like your plumbers and sparkies and all that kind of
mm,
stuff. Like, it's just, things need to change,
mm.
for me to probably consider. I don't know. I'll leave it open. I'll leave that
Yeah,
question open as well,
we'll,
Mike.
we'll, we'll park that one.
Yeah.
So can you, what was the most stressful point in your business journey at Solar Pasta?
There was a couple of moments. There was a couple of Friday night moments where I go to my business partner. We were calling an hour and a half on waits, pizzas, that we'd told an hour and a half to hadn't even gone into the oven. It's like, and we've just
Yeah,
gone, fuck, there must be an easier way to make money. It really was.
yeah,
I had a few of those moments, and I think that was probably the most challenging part, keeping up with demand and maintaining that sort of. And we tried to set a high bar for ourselves, and that was probably the biggest struggles that we had as business owners, was maintaining it and making sure that, when Mike Denehey comes in, that his barbecue chicken is going to be the same as what he had last week and the week before. That's probably without a doubt the biggest sort of challenge that we had was making sure our product remained consistent.
Consistent, yeah, which is so important for any business, consistency.
Yeah.
Is there anything you can share with our listeners that enabled you to be consistent?
Mate, yeah, being a tape recorder and just playing it to the staff every night, guys, consistency, it wouldn't be a night if I didn't say something at least 8 times, repeated myself. Like, you felt just like, I mean, you think about it as well, to make a pizza, it's got to go through a preparation phase of the dough. So that's, the dough was, the foundation of your house. And then it goes through, and then you take it to someone who's got to tray it up. And if it's uneven, um, it becomes this lopsided thing. And then you've got someone who's going to make it. Then you've got someone who cooks it. And then you've got someone who cuts it. So there's so many different components. And,
Mm.
you use the same philosophy, with cooking a plate of pasta as well. Everyone just thinks, oh, how hard is it? Just throw it on. It's very, very, very easy for it to go wrong. And, as a result, you can get some not so good pizzas out there, and likewise for pastas. So look, procedures, I think that was the biggest thing that, and the business partners were really good at that. In particular in the kitchens, they were really good at implementing procedures. And that's through recipes and just making sure the process was foolproof, so to speak. You really got to simplify things because you're dealing with all different types of personalities and all different skill sets
Mm.
too as well, because it lacked, it's such a transient industry. You sort of weren't dealing with, not all the time, people that, that's their career and that's what they want to do. So you really had to adapt and try to make it as simple as possible to people to follow or to adhere to procedures.
Mm. No, that's good to hear because I mean systems and processes are so important to enable growth, but also that consistency. So and interesting, you said you had to repeat things multiple times. I think as frustrating as that is, that's just reality. It's probably somewhat human nature. So yes,
Absolutely.
that's some good tips there. Um, so what area in business did you feel you had to work on the most to add the greatest value? Was there anything particular?
I felt that I involved myself quite deeply and involved in the business as well. Um, Mike, so I sort of learned very early on in the piece. It's like, there'd be times where, you want to go out, or you've had an argument, or you're not feeling the best. Um, I sort of had to, I sort of really taught myself where I had to sort of hide my emotions. I think that was probably the biggest thing that I sort of taught myself, is that, at the end of the day, Mike Denehey does not care how I'm feeling. And I say that with respect as well.
Mm,
People,
mm,
people were always sympathetic, and they could always see when things were tough and busy, and, they always, felt for you. But at the end of the day, these people are coming for a service, and I need to provide that service. So teaching myself to, mate, as soon as 5 o'clock's on, whatever you got going on before, mate, switch it off because you're on show now. So that was a big thing that I learned. What I felt that was a contributing factor to making sure we remain consistent, because no one wants a miserable,
mm.
frowning face, upset, or whatever he's serving you. It's just not what we are in the that's not how we define ourselves as being hospitable, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah, that's a very good point. I think being ready and when uh, when the bell rings, so to speak, you got to be have your game day approach on. So that's a really
Absolutely.
good point. Yeah. So what have you enjoyed the least about managing that fast growth?
Probably the people management side of things, to be
Mm,
honest.
mm,
That's probably the most challenging. And it's challenging to probably a lot of businesses, to my understanding, for what I see and what I hear. That was probably trying to navigate, well, we just keep, our growth, we're really, really fortunate that the business growth just continued to rise. And the trying to be able to, you know, handle that, and with your staff, that was probably the biggest. That was probably the biggest challenge that I had, we had,
Yep.
in that, and that's getting, it'd be nothing for someone to say, hey, I'm finishing up this week, and with us having no real contingency plan, like we never had a, like one of these sort of major chains like Woolworths, where okay, well, Mike's gone, I'll just get Jimmy, Joe, or Jan, because they're all doing one shift each, and yeah, that was very much most challenging, and it probably stopped us from sort of growing into other other avenues, and venues too as well, because the model itself is relatively easy and straightforward, but that's probably the most challenging part, Mike.
Yeah, and not uncommon, as you say. Most businesses, people tend to be the biggest challenge,
Yeah,
but where the value is at, as we say. So,
absolutely.
yeah. So, what do you love most about growing a small business?
I think the fact that you can leave your mark on something, seeing that it takes kindly to the public. It's something that becomes in demand. That was something that I got really. Look, the money was always important, and it was what, and to elements, it's what drove me. But I think the biggest driving success for me was the customer satisfaction, of creating something, a product, which people wanted to enjoy it and wanted to be associated with it. For me, that was a big sort of, that was a big driving factor for me,
Mm.
uh, Mike, on what I felt, was probably the most enjoyable part about the business.
Yeah, no, good one. And certainly engage with the customers really well. And I think that was, part of your secret sauce, I think, at the end of the day.
Yeah, well, I think
Yeah.
I definitely think it had a lot to do with it. And again, I come from great sort of predecessors. My father always put an emphasis on loving the customer, and
Mm.
Angelo as well. You
Mm.
love your customer, and the old cliche, the cash register will love you, so to
Yeah,
speak.
yeah, like
Which,
it.
yeah,
So, what was your biggest mindset shift for you in that growth journey?
look, I don't think I ever changed my mindset, to be honest, Mike. I think once I got out of it, um, I probably would have changed my mindset on how I saw, um, what it takes to run a successful business.
Hmm.
I think my mindset didn't alter. I was very focused, and I think you asked probably the people around me the most. My mates, that you know, um, family, how little time that I gave them when they did come in, because sort of, as much as you sort of look after them, my main focus was making sure that customers had that experience, and my mindset never ever altered from that. It wasn't until, I was out to where I thought to myself, well, maybe could I have, probably I would have done things differently, Mike. I would have done things differently. To
Yeah,
what, how I would have done it. It's an open. It's
yeah. But while you're in it, there wasn't necessarily a mindset shift. So more after you've got out that there's looking back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very much so.
So what the number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain in running a small business?
Be open to change, I think. uh, be open to, and that's something that, I was fortunate enough, to have some great mentors that I could go to, but engage in professionals. I think that's the biggest, go, and if things aren't working, or to not even necessarily when things aren't working, everyone thinks to say, oh, well, let's go speak to someone when there's an issue, or let's go speak to someone to maintain that we're on the right path, and we're doing the right things. And I think that
Mm.
was something that look, I never did, but I had it through, in other ways, and having good support around me through business, partnerships, and that there as well. So, those are the kind of things that I would say, would be important, I think.
Yeah.
Want specific advice to help you get your business through its #1 growth challenge? Book a free 20-minute growth chat with me, Troy, the founder of Grow a Small Business. I'll recommend some resources which will help you grow your business with ease so you can live the lifestyle you've signed up for. Go to growasmallbusiness.com and click on Growth Chat.
Yeah. So what are some of the things you recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture, as we say at Grow a Small Business, to help with growing a small business?
Oh, mate, well, it starts from the top, Mike. It really does, mate. And you'll get you'll get the most out of your staff when the staff see you not necessarily being there 7 days a week, but I mean that's the biggest sort of, and I'm looking at it from such a smaller scale and probably an uneducated point of view of looking at it. But I think empowering your staff and I think believing in them, I think that was a big thing as well for us to say, hey, you've got this. We're off for the weekend, and I know you can do it. And I think that's probably the biggest thing is empowerment of the people around you, and having good people around you was absolutely pivotal for the growth of your brand. And we were happy to share that as well. We kept the ones that were close to us, our core group, very close to us. And hopefully they'll be able to speak freely and open about that too as well. So that was a big thing.
Yeah, no, good tip. So how did you handle work-life balance, or did you?
No, struggle, Mike.
Yeah.
Always struggled. And I sacrificed, but the issue as well not the issue, is that I loved what I did as well, Mike. So I never saw it as, fuck, I've got to go to work today. You had your moments where, a few of the boys were, down Salamanca, or, a couple of trips to Sydney or Melbourne that you missed out on, and I sacrificed a lot. It's funny, I'm not sure, there's not many people that know this as well, that my initial business partner, Alfonso, he left because he wanted to go travel. And I thought to myself, fuck, we just got in here. We're 4 years in, and he wants to go. And I look back now and I understood it, and I still understood it when he left, but I was thought, fuck, well, if he's going, so am I. I don't want to, what am I going to do? I didn't know how to cook. I didn't, as far as service went, I wouldn't know what to have done. And, and it wasn't until my business partner, Dimitri, who was initially going to buy us both out, I think literally contracts were all signed. We got everything done. And it wasn't till literally the 11th hour I said, fuck, I don't want to go. I said, mate, do you want a business partner? And you want me to stay? And that's how that changed. So my career could have ended pretty quick, or, what ifs or could haves. So I never saw it. I never saw it as a job, Mike. I saw it as it was a way of life for me. And that was, yeah. So to answer your question, there was no balance because it was.
Yeah. And I think it's a good point, because I think, a lot of small business owners, it is part of their life, and they're passionate about it, whether they, started the business or bought it. But where lies the challenge, and getting that integration with your personal life. So, and you said earlier, so you look after your health and spend time with your family. It's all about that balance and how it
100%.
integrates. Because I'm not a big one for that term, work-life balance, because I don't think there is. It's how you integrate it and how
Correct.
you make it work for you, is the important bit.
Oh, very much so. I think that's, yeah. And I was never good at that. I was never good at balancing that. And as a result, sort of, when we chose to sell, that's, that was a big contributing factor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we see it regularly, and I think certainly as part of our business transformation program, that's sort of part of one the outcomes is getting that better integration, by introducing systems for one, and getting the people structures right as the one. And to your point earlier, empowering your people so you can delegate more. So,
Well, that was my biggest regret, Mike. I think not being able to, I did, that was my biggest regret. I think that, and again, as I said, I probably would have, it would have given me a lot more longevity out of the restaurant too as well if I could sort of practice what I've just preached,
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah. Did you have any mentors or coaches along the way? I
Look,
mean,
apart from realistically the ones that I mentioned, my father in particular. Look, I did. I keep saying, Ange, and this is going to fucking rub his head, blow his head up. But I learned from a restaurant perspective. I learned I learned a lot from him. I give thanks. There's never been any kind of secrets. But I think I got my core. Well, I definitely got my core values from my father about being just genuine. My father's pretty black and white. You would know if he liked you, and you probably know if he didn't like you. I sort of had to be a little bit more tactful in the restaurant industry. You can't sort of every person that you disagree with, you can't sort of. And he wasn't that at all, But he would sort of, he'd give him little to no time, once his opinion was made. But I think I learned a lot from those two figures, and one from core values, and then one from the business side of it, through restaurants, through Ange. So yeah, I did. I had some great mentors, but I also was really open. I met a lot of amazing people, Mike. I met some really intelligent people. I met some real street smart people. So I had some, you know, when you say mentors, like there was mentors that I was learning every night in that
mm,
restaurant through, not always things to necessarily do, but things not to do. It's like more, I won't be doing that, or I won't be saying that, or so. Yeah, life for me in the restaurant was a big learning lesson,
mm,
and I was forever learning, and I still am to this date. And you know, being with these boys now, a couple of nights a week here and there, I'm learning. I'm learning a heap from them as well. I'm learning. You learn things on what to do, and you think, shit, I could have done that. There's also things that I wouldn't do, but there's so yeah. I've seen that mentorship from, I've seen that in a lot of my association with a lot of people over the years.
yeah, no, good. I think it's so important to have people like that are around you that you can lean on when and
Yeah,
needed.
yeah.
So, given you've exited the business solo pasta, with hindsight, what would you do differently?
I would have let go a little bit, Mike.
Mm,
Let go a little bit. I wouldn't have sweated the 5% as we call them in our industry as much. I still would have sweated it. But I think a lot of the times that I sort of, and a few of the boys close to me, and they used to say, Simon, like, mate, they're not going to know. They won't notice, if that slice was cut a little bit bigger than the other slice, or, the parsley wasn't chopped as finely, or, there was a smudge mark on the pizza box, or all those little things, Mike, that I used to, what I thought was what it took to remain consistent and across that board. I a good mate, one of the boys that I work with now as well. It's like, he tells me, you got to pick your battles now, like otherwise you'll end up, And there were days where I just felt, mate, I'm going to go nuts here. Like, you've said the same thing literally 15 times. Why aren't they getting it? Like, I think that's the biggest thing, Mike, that I've learned. If I had my time again, I would have really been a little bit more tactful in picking and choosing my battles, because I
sure.
I, cho- I chose them all. And I
Yeah,
was, you know what I
yeah.
mean?
Which can yeah, consume you sometimes, right?
Yeah, yeah, it does.
Yeah. As far as the exit goes, is there any learnings you got out of that actual process, or is it a pretty smooth process?
Well, the exit strategy for me, Mike, sort of, I don't know if there's any kind of silver lining out of COVID, because it ruined a lot of lives, and it changed on how, I think there were certain things that definitely came out of it which changed, on how we do things, moving forward, and that's this whole new lifestyle of working from home now as well. That wasn't even heard of, or to a point. Um, so I think for me, because it was this transition period with me, I was actually the guy that I sold it to. He sort of said, "Mate, don't go, stay on for a little bit," and I agreed to that. And I don't think I would have known how to have exited that transition, because it was an open ended. I had my sort of legal 3 months of the transition, but after that, I was going to be employed as a contract base sort of employment. So I struggled not knowing when to leave, when was the right time, and I was sort of forced when we went into shutdown. That was sort of I was forced to sort of move on and sort of relinquish all duties from the restaurant. So yeah, I was never good. Um, I wasn't good at that because I didn't have a real exit strategy per
Mm.
se.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a good point. I hear that regularly. I think there's one aspect that there is a requirement sometimes, like yourself, for 3 months. But I think having drawn that line in the sand at some point is important just to move on.
yeah,
To your point, so
and I
uh,
wasn't good at that. Yeah, that was
yeah,
that was that
yeah,
was something that I seek to
yeah.
challenge
Well,
with.
most find that hard. That's yeah. So, mate, just to wrap up our final five questions. So, what do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
Patience, and belief in the product and in the brand. There's some things, Mike, that just take off, bang, you create something and it just goes nuts. Um, and we were fortunate enough to experience components of that. I think it comes back down to the hardest thing in growing the business is back to the people management, on making sure that you've got great people around you, that have similar understanding of what it takes. You've got to be in the same direction. You've got to be flying as one. I think that was
Yeah,
the biggest, because once one starts to deviate, things can go pear shaped really, really quickly.
yeah,
I mean, I've witnessed that over the years as well through business relationships, and I've seen that occur, regularly. And I was fortunate enough, touch wood, that I never had to sort of endure that.
yeah. That's a good point. You're only as strong as your weakest link, right?
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, 100%.
And I think with people, it is yeah, that's a common answer. But again, there is stuff you can do with processes around that, which again is a big part of our business transformation program. Um, so, have you got a favourite business book, or that was sort of it wasn't sort of something that you sort of used as far as the business growth?
No, look, Mike, I'm going to be honest, mate. I really I sort of kept a very sort of basic belief of
Mm,
of what it took to be a successful business now, and I think that knowing having my time back again, I probably would have invested a little bit more time in those kind of you know books, and I've never been a big reader. That's my other thing. I've struggled with that. There, I've always been on the job, learning, listening, watching. So, mate, no.
mm.
To answer your question, no. I
Yeah,
just I had my mentors around me, and I always, you know, the more people that I had around me, I suppose the more ability that I had to get different perspectives, you know, of it. And that was probably my biggest sort of thanks to knowing such a big network of
yeah,
so many different people.
yeah. And every situation's different, and every situation has different ways to learn and individuals. So,
Correct.
so is there one tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
Yeah, procedures,
Yeah,
100%. Make sure your procedures are foolproof. Make sure, yeah, I think that's the biggest key, consistency.
yeah,
And consistency comes from, a procedure-based sort of plan of attack. Knowing what you need to do to get to that point and sticking true to it. Not diversifying or, derailing and going left, mate. That was the biggest thing, was consistency. And I think and I use McDonald's formula a lot, often, with all my staff. And I was always intrigued with staff that came from McDonald's because they knew what procedures, they had everything from opening the microwave up. There was a procedure to putting your beef patty, in the oven or whatever. However, they had procedures for absolutely everything. So we always looked extremely highly of people that come from those fast food chains, because they instill that at a very, very start of their employment.
Yeah, that's a good tip, and so very important, as you say. So just to the last question, mate, what would you tell yourself on day one of starting out, knowing what you know now?
Get ready for a life-changing journey. I think, Mike, that was probably get ready for a life-changing journey. And I think that was, not really much business acumen behind it, but I think that was probably the biggest thing that I'd tell myself. Because it's been a journey. It's been an amazing one. And yeah, I don't know, would I have done things differently? There's definitely components that I would have. But overall, Mike, meeting rock stars like Mike Denehey and the likes of those boys, what a privilege to be associated with that, and that was there was so many Mike Denehys that I met along the way, and so many amazing. So, mate, that's all I can say. I think
enjoy the journey.
Yeah, enjoy it.
Well, look, thanks for the chat, mate. It's been great listening to your journey and hearing about some of the ups and downs, and look forward to watching your next business journeys as they go forward, and catching up soon. So thanks again.
Mike, appreciate it, mate. Thanks for asking me on, mate. It was an absolute pleasure. Appreciate it, mate.
We're getting some great iTunes reviews. For those listening, please pop over to your podcast app and leave us a review.